That next lockout, 13 days exactly, because it's going to be in Vegas, 12:30,
That
1:30.
is big. 13 days to go. We're here for a scoop team update. Is all on the screen. I'm super excited for this. A lot of you gave him crap about his spreadsheets with every single one of those players being in a void. So it's here. He does have a full 21. It's absolutely wild. Not everyone is in a void, mate. We are making this on Monday. I think it'll come out later in the week, which would be cool, just before the second lot of trials. So thought this was the best to get a bit of an idea. And obviously he's on this channel plenty to get an idea on his squad. You got my team reveal. Scoop, take it away. I'll be here just to ask any questions if need.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to a lot of teams, Jamie, but there's a lot of thought behind these picks. So whenever we get somebody coming in from the YouTube channel in the Discord going, oh, who should I have in my team? Why should I have in my team? I often try and ask them, why do you have this individual person here in your team? Can you back them up? If you don't have a reason for it, well, they probably shouldn't be in your team. So if you can either tick them as a gun, somebody with potential to be a keeper with a few points of value, or somebody with upside that has them at like 10 points of value or more or something like that, they're the type of guys that we're looking forward to stick into our team. So I'll go from the top. I got Reece Robson at the top. I was thinking about Grant. I was thinking about Jeremy Marshall King. Grant's the tip top. He's clear. He's the best hooker. Yeah, Reece Robson had a down year, and we've seen him score high 50s in the past. With the hooker meta changing to be more out into the back line, I think that we need to get on solid hooker points early. And I think that Reece can get some really good tackling without being too tired. And I mean, I just see it really easy for him to average more than 48. So I'm seeing something along the lines of low to mid 50s for him, and that's a keeper. I can carry that for a good long time.
Awesome, mate. Just with your general strategy, do you feel like you differ to many other players? I know you do love a pod, obviously, but from a starting team's perspective, not too different or a little bit different to other people?
It's not too different. There's probably 2 or 3 picks in here that are a little bit different. They're mostly TLT dependent. So you might see someone that's a little bit interesting, like an Aitken or a Kiraz or a Seyfarth or even a Leotawa in there. They're mostly from trials or for basically just to see if they're named in team lists. So Aitken, for example, started Edge in the trials on the weekend. And although we had a lot of Lemuelu last year, we now have Herbie Farnworth coming to the Dolphins. So Aitken's going to get pushed out of that center spot, and somebody's going to have to go to that back row, and one of them's going to miss out or be on the bench. So we've seen Aitken in the past at the Warriors be a gun at edge because he has that center duel. He can average high 40s with that. I'm very happy to pay up if he's starting edge for the Dolphins. It's really tough this year. So I've gone with 2 guys who potentially are really good scorers at center because there's just so many question marks about who are the cheapy centers we're going to get. As you can see, I've got a lot of them sprinkled throughout my team. I've got Burbo potentially. I've got Leotawa if he managed to snag one. I had Kotrick as well in my team for a good while. But yeah, at this stage, I'm trying to cut down on those really, really cheap outside backs that are hard to pry out of your emergencies if they go wrong. So mostly I'm looking for a bit of balance and a bit of flexibility.
You normally do that and try and have cover in most positions from round one?
I try to. I've had a year or two where I've been all solidly covered except for one position and just sort of had to wing it for a few weeks. But yeah, you've got to make sure that you've got a plan to get some cover or be a little bit lucky. I think the other year I like and it doesn't always work out. Sometimes it's better to grab the guys who are the best, even if you don't have full perfect cover. Like I think 2 years ago when Tango first came on scene, I panic switched to Coates last minute because I wanted to wing some wing fullback cover, and that sucked. Coates went pretty ordinary. Tango went up like 40k, and I had to make the switch. So you start with the guys who you think are going to make you the most money, but you try and balance that as much as you can. I've got what have I got? I've got a lot of wing fullback cover. I've got some half mid hooker, so I'm mostly covered across the board, especially when some of these duels come in, for example.
Definitely, mate. Just Scoop is a great fantasy player, guys. For those that are new to the channel or just checking in and saying, "Oh, who is this guy?" Just remind them of your rank last season.
Jamie and I were in a big battle last year to see who would finish up with the higher overall rank, and he just pipped me to the post. You finished 101st, I think, and I came 129th. So we've got a little bit of experience behind it. And I might just mention this now because I really love my stats and I'd love to find those hidden gems. But if they're hidden, not many players own them. If you own them and they go bad, you're the only one that's really hurting from that. And everybody else on high ownership guys are doing well. Profit. Last year is the first time I went pretty strongly with the pack and only broke away with some of the different picks a bit later. And I instantly smashed my best ever ranking. So it's just something to note. I don't know if I'll start with all of these low ownership guys. So let's just switch to what is it, ownership for a moment. You can see I've got Aitken 1.6, Karaz 1.5, Safar 0.9, Leitua 2.7. I don't know if I'll start with all these guys. I don't know if they'll be named in the places I want in TLT. So I probably will be going with the pack on the vast majority of these picks because they're high ownership for a reason, because their role is solid and safe and everybody knows about it.
But the interesting one here, mate, is that you actually had a really good start last year. After sort of the first few rounds, you were ranked well ahead of myself. So yeah, if you're looking at any of these picks, guys, don't discount them because he started really well last year on the back of a few slightly different picks to what a lot of the pack went with. So I suppose the big thing there is made that if it is only a couple of picks and if they sort of do outperform everyone else and the higher percentages there, you're not going too far against the grain that, let's just say, they don't perform as well and you're a little bit behind to kick things off. It's not a killer. But if they do happen to outperform a few of the other guys that maybe you're not sure of, as you said, like picking every time you put a player in your side, you need to have a clear reason. And if you've got a clear reason, they could outperform at the start, and that's where you weren't crazy. You weren't like the top 500 or something to start the year, but had a much better start than what I did and what a lot of other good coaches did as well. So that's something to know when you're looking at his team, guys, is that he did start well last year.
Yeah, I started. There was a couple of lucky teams in probably the first 3 weeks, but from then on, I motored up to about the top 1,000 pretty quick from then on and slowly chipped away. So somebody, um, somebody I guess that I see as really high upside if they get the role I want, that probably not as many people are going to own, would be someone like Jacob Kiraz. I'd expect that if Aitken's named Edge, everyone's going to know about it, everyone's going to love it. Yeah, Kiraz had a very injury disrupted season last year, has the potential to play center, has a massive offloading game, big tackle breaking game. It's basically Greg Marju at the Dogs, and you've got him at a 40 average. I think he can push up towards high 40s if he is at center now that he's fit. NRL Physio loves him and has him as an injury bounce back for Super Coach. I have him similar for fantasy, but I really, really want that center duel. So if he's not named at center, good chance I don't start with him. But yeah, I am looking for those sort of guys who I've seen history from them that indicates that they have a lot of safety, even though I might be going a bit different.
Yeah, for sure. And what would you see, mate, is the benefit of spending up a little bit more in the center and the wing fullback, rather than maybe spending it in other positions and going cheap there?
Yeah, well, it's sort of a bit counterintuitive because you don't want to go too heavy. If you go right up the top, they generally fall a little because, I mean, this early season rust, middle forwards and hookers dominate the tackles and there's not as expansive play. But if you've got your sort of mid-priced guys who have the potential to be close to those top players, they're the guys who are going to give you safety. They're going to give you points and they won't drop you 15. Like, I don't know, Chevy Stewart looked a little bit timid on the weekend. Maybe Chevy will drop you a 15, and you don't really want that in your starting 13 week to week. So if I've got like an Aitken and Pappenhausen and Karaz just locking down at least like 30 points a week with potential to go 40, 50, 60 type scores, I'm really happy to go with that. And your middle forwards, they're going to dominate anyway. So you can pick some value and they're going to rise anyway.
Yeah, for sure, mate. How much cash do you normally leave at the bank? How much you got now?
I don't have much at the moment, so that's another reason why this team might change. I've got a lot locked up in these two. Good chance one of them doesn't make it, and that way I have enough cash then to just go for another edge or something. So with your cash, you're looking to have enough left to deal with fires in round 2. So like someone gets injured or suspended, or someone just doesn't get the role you're expecting, and you really need to move on to someone who's basically nearly turned themselves into a must-have. Say if I went, uh, I don't know, say Kyle Flanagan didn't do as much, or like even say Josh Curran doesn't get that big minute lock roll because Salmon did well in the trials. There's Kurt Mann there. If he, for
Come
some
on.
reason, everybody owns him, for some reason, then I've got money to move around and I can get anybody in that price bracket. I could go up to like an Elliott or a Cotto if I didn't have him. So it is really handy to have a little bit in the bank, but not too much that you're just wasting points. I'm not just going to sit there and buy a I'm not going to sit there and buy like a Will Penasini to score 40 or 45 for me if I can get a Ponga, for example, and have 200K in the bank. It's you've got to keep those points there, but you've got to keep just a little bit and enough to just have a little bit of flexibility if things do go wrong.
Yeah, and obviously this team's going to change plenty, and we've got some news from Piakura that yeah, we're not sure how he's going to end up, if he's going to be there for round 1 and the like. So things could change, obviously, by the time you're watching this. But mate, let's just say it goes exactly as planned. Every single one of these players remains in your team. You've got Alex Seyfarth there who has the bye in that first round. And maybe by the time this video comes out, I'll have put out the a looping video just to help out all of the newbies, especially. But mate, in this setup right now, who would you be looking? Would you be looking to loop a Chevy or something like that, given he potentially has upside at fullback? Is that sort of how would you play that bench right now to try and get the best 17 on the park in round 1?
I would be looping a Raiders guy and probably someone else. So we can see that the Raiders play reasonably early. If you have one of these first 4 teams, like a cheap guy from them, so maybe if Munro had been fit, he would have been good. Willison maybe, but I don't see him as high upside, like scoring 35 that you'd want to loop. Say I had another center there. Say I had Kiraz and Aitken there, and I wanted to loop Burbo, and I wanted to see just how he did and what his role was. I would chuck him over up the top there in number 5, and then I'd wait and see what his score was. And if I liked it, I'd just leave it, and then he'd fill in for number 4. That's how the emergencies work. They fill in either the highest ranked guy of that position fills into your 13, or the highest ranked emergency, no matter what their position, will fill in for a hole on your bench. So if I didn't then like him, I could then just do something like that, and boom, I've avoided his score, and I've got someone else who I can then risk and probably have like a 60-70% chance of getting it right if you're playing the scores right. If Burbo scored 40, I'd be happy looping that. If he scored 30, 25, 20, it then becomes a question of do you or don't you want to?
Yeah, for sure, mate. Very upset here that Sam Hughes is your 21st man. He should be your starting mid. He is an absolute gun. 40 points, 40 minutes. That's my call around 1.
Yeah, what a legend. If he's starting round 1, look, he's really starting to give me 2022 Max King vibes now. Like there's nobody there. Like Liam Knight didn't put his hand up in the trials. He did not put his hand up in week 1. Sam Hughes could turn into that 30, 35-minute guy who turns into a starting prop and soars away to 500-600K. So it would be, I'm really keen to see how he goes. He could be the other guy that I loop.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. Yeah, I suppose everyone's going to own him, right? It's just be like, yeah, if you're looking at taking his score or not, which will be the big thing. But yeah, mate, there's probably my only thoughts here is that you're like semi light on the last couple of interchanges. Obviously, like going for a Flanagan or a Stewart or a Sam Hughes or KO Weeks or whatever that is, but plenty of cover across the board, and you've got a little bit more cash in the center or the wing fullback. So I suppose you're getting more points from, let's just say, your wing fullback in Kiraz at, let's just say it's a 40 odd compared to maybe a 25 or 30 for a week. So you're like gaining in there, probably lose a tiny bit on the interchange. So guys, it probably doesn't matter too much. Like you could go light in the wing fullback, lose some points there, but you have a hectic interchange and you get the points back there. So everyone's likely to be even. And it really just is based off where the value is, right? Because what you're looking at, pretty much everyone in your team, apart from a Haas and a Cleary, would have some value in your 21, right?
Yeah, pretty much. So you need top guns, you need your vice captain and captain points. You just need to lock in some early points from some positions. Some seasons you can pick 3, 4, 5, depending on how many good cheapies you have. This year, I think it's not going to be as easy, and there's going to be a lot of mid ranges, as you've seen. So yeah, pick a couple of really big guns and then try and maximize that value, because you've got to get this team value up eventually by like mid to late season, around 17, round 19, 20. You want to get it up to that sort of 14 million mark, or even up to 15 million if you're right up the top to get a full squad of absolute guns. It's basically the stock market of fantasy, of footy players. You just ride until you've got a super duper salary cap, and you can just have a full squad scoring tons of points for you.
Pretty wild that we gained 4 to 5 million across the season, hey? Because yeah, the size at the end of the year, you're running like a Isaiah Papali'i is your 17th man last year, which is just wild.
Yeah.
That's where you're at, like a low 50s guy is your 16th, 17th man, if you do really well, obviously. But yeah, strategies like this, mate, and just looking for guys that have value, have a clear role. That's kind of what I'm seeing in your team right now. Obviously, Blore is the one we're just waiting to see, but it's likely he gets that edge spot, and you're looking for back rowers in the centers if you get that opportunity, which you've done. You've got base stat guys in your wing fullback. You know, Keeney has good running meters. Kiraz has good running base as well. Pap's Pap. And then the bench emergency guys, they're all players with certain roles. You're looking for Seyfarth with a 13 role, which is great. Flanagan has a halves role. Lussick, Curran, they've got their role. Ali, KO Weeks, Hughes, again, all look fairly safe in their sides. Like if Weeks was to get that spot. So you really can't go too wrong with this side. You're not taking too many ridiculous risks. And it's probably why that you come out with a fairly decent rank over the first few rounds. Then obviously it's your decision making from there that gets you right up into those top rankings like you were last week, mate. But yeah, big thank you for showing off your team. I know a lot of people will appreciate. Any sort of final thoughts on your squad, mate? Obviously, you're likely to change a fair bit over the next week or two.
Yeah, I think the big change that could happen is one of these two center eligible guys potentially won't be there, and they'll just go out for another bench edge to give me that cash and to strengthen that 17 a little bit. So I'd put like a Stewart or somebody else into that starting wing fullback, which I mean isn't ideal. But I mean, we've got Campbell in a couple of weeks, so I'm not too upset with it. And I can just ride from there. So yeah, a little bit of pushing around, but it's mostly it's settling in. We're getting close.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with Aiken and Karaz, you can switch Aiken to anyone up or down, like 50K up or down. 50, yeah, exactly as well. And then Karaz is the same. Obviously, there's guys around his price that you could go to, or just drop right down and spend some money elsewhere and shore things up in that 21. So yeah, in a good spot, mate. And yeah, let's find out if it maybe by the time this comes out, we've learned a bit about Piakura, but at 399, that's a tough one to lose, that's for sure, given how well he looked in that first half, eh?
Yeah, 2 tries. You always love to see your back rowers and your forwards scoring tries and turning their decent scores into big ones. I'm gonna enjoy having him in my team as long as he's there round 1.
Exactly. Well, big thanks, mates, and yeah, really appreciate obviously this preseason as well with the 17 buy planner videos we've got out for each of the squads, and yeah, get around Scoop in the Discord as well. He's always very active in there, and yeah, give him some love in the comments as well. We only accept love here on the JBFA community, especially on the channel here. So yeah, get in there and tell us what you love about Scoop. I'd love to see a fun fact or something that you love about Lockie there. So yeah, big thanks, guys, and we'll see you after the next trials.